And as chair, I would really like to thank Violet very much for, first of all, providing a recording of her presentation, but also joining us here this morning. What time is it in where you are, Violet?
It is 4:10 a.m. I am not a morning person, let me tell you.
Well, thank you very much for getting up this early to join us here this morning. Thank you very much.
I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I think without further ado, we will now see Violet's presentation. And don't forget to post your questions in the via chat and send them to me, the host. Thank you very much.
Hello. Let's do a quick audio check so that you can make sure your volume is at the right level. My name is Violet Fox. I use she, her pronouns, and my Twitter handle is @VioletBFox. Today, let's talk about big and bold ideas. For accessibility purposes, and anyone who would like to follow along with text in front of you, you can find the full script of this talk by going to tinyurl.com/mdg2020. I would like to take a moment to thank you for allowing me to be a part of your day. I am so excited to be here with you, although I'm very sorry that we can't be together physically. I want to thank the conference organizers for your hard work, as well as everyone who will be presenting and participating. I'm looking forward to learning from you at the rest of the conference this week. I do want to quickly note that these are my personal opinions and not that of my employer. With that, let's get started. First off, there's no need to adjust your monitor setting. You are looking at twine. More specifically, you are looking at a twine ball. Even more specifically, you are looking at the world's largest ball of twine created by one man. As I pull away, you'll see that it's challenging to get a good shot of the twine ball because of the glass enclosure, especially on such a beautiful sunny day. But hopefully you'll get a sense for just how big the twine ball is. 12 feet high, that's about 3.5 meters, and 40 feet around, that's about 12 meters. It's in this fancy gazebo, and there's a museum and souvenir shop just behind it to the left. The man who created this twine ball was Francis A. Johnson. He was a farmer, and he started wrapping twine when he was 45 years old. You'll see on the sign that they point out that this is the largest twine ball in the world that was created by one man. There are 3 other contenders to the world's largest twine ball title. One is larger, one is heavier, but this is the original one, the one that started the trend. Weird Al Yankovic wrote a song about it, if you're the kind of nerd who listens to 7-minute Weird Al songs about a road trip to see a twine ball. I spend a good amount of my free time thinking about road trips to see roadside attractions, especially giant versions of smaller things. Here's me with a very large turkey here in Minnesota, and here's a very large strawberry in Iowa, and here's a very large cow in North Dakota. I even write a zine about the roadside attractions that I've seen and about their cultural significance. The theme of this conference was really intimidating. What did I have to say that was big? But then I realized I love big things. I may not have super genius things to say, but I can certainly talk about the joy of things that are big and bold. While I'm talking today, I'm going to show you a video that I took in Darwin, Minnesota, population about 350 people. To help orient you, here's a map of the continental United States with a red dot marking central Minnesota. And here's a map of Minnesota with Darwin marked with a red dot. You can see Darwin is right on the edge of where the prairie meets the forest. It's a unique landscape. Before colonization, this land was inhabited and maintained by the Dakota peoples. It was all prairie grassland. Now it's primarily used for growing soybeans and corn. So as you watch the corn grow and the wind blow, let me finally talk about libraries. First, I'll tell you what I do, and then I'll talk about some library history, and finally I'll ask some questions about what kind of a profession we want to build together. My job is that I'm one of the editors of the Dewey Decimal Classification. There are 4 of us on the editorial team, 2 full-time editors and 2 part-time volunteers. The job that we do, we essentially make up the numbers in Dewey. Sometimes I'll joke about having a big dartboard with numbers 1 through 10, and then we just pick whatever number comes up to add to the classification. But I'm kidding. The job involves a lot of research into publication trends and whatever subject we're focusing on to make revisions. And it involves a lot of talking with library workers around the world to figure out what's not working well in Dewey and how we can make things work better together. And as you can imagine, the work to revise Dewey never ends. There's always more topics to incorporate and changes in the way we think about organizing knowledge. As you might also imagine, I spend a lot of time thinking about Melville Dewey and the origins of the structure that I work within. Melville is an unpopular figure in librarianship these days, and with good reason. If you haven't heard much about him, or even if you have, I'd encourage you to read Irrepressible Reformer, Wayne Wiegand's biography of Melville. He's a complicated figure. He was unmistakably racist, anti-Semitic, and a serial sexual harasser of women. In addition to creating the Dewey Decimal Classification, he helped found the American Library Association, Library Journal, and other significant institutions that last through the present day. A good part of the reason librarianship is a primarily female profession is due to his efforts. You can see that we really can't ignore his legacy even if your library doesn't use Dewey. I think a lot about Melville and the libraries he was working within, and how his view of the world affects the classification even today, even after 144 years of ongoing revisions. The thing I can't get over is the audacity of creating one system to organize all published knowledge. From our vantage point, that looks like arrogance. It certainly was. At the same time, it was groundbreaking. Melville was driven by efficiency. He thought it was incredibly inefficient that each library had its own shelving organization. And it was. The thing about Melville is that he had big plans. He wanted to reform things in the shape he thought things ought to be. He tried a bunch of different things, some of which worked out, the library stuff, and some of which didn't work out, like trying to popularize spelling reform and the metric system in the United States. One of his most successful efforts was creating a social club in New York State, where he built a strong community, but one based on classism and white supremacy and anti-Semitism. Clearly, he was a jerk, and worse. He had such small ideas about what was acceptable. What you and I have is a bigger perspective of the world. So I want to ask you, what if we could use the big and bold energy that Melville had to build communities that were truly inclusive? Let me jump forward a bit to talk about another big innovation in libraries, MARC. Many of you know the history of MARC better than I do, so I won't belabor it. But I will take just a moment to say how truly cutting-edge MARC was in the 1960s. How incredible was it to have used physical card catalogs for years or decades, and then to have that same information available electronically. MARC was developed by Henriette Avram, but was made possible by a team of people working together at the Library of Congress. Those of you who have been around for a while know that the transformation did not take place instantaneously. There were decades of retrospective conversion, and some information has still never made it off the physical catalog cards into an electronic environment. In dealing with MARC now, there's a sensation of being trapped by what was previously so successful. We know that the development of MARC was based on physical cards. They still had to be concerned with printing the information onto the cards. We know that many of our cataloging standards were shaped by the limitations presented by physical catalog cards. And we know that the hundreds of millions of records in MARC, that legacy data, is a real challenge to deal with. As a profession, we're still battling with breaking free from the limitations imposed by MARC. MARC was the result of a well-funded government agency and very smart people and gumption. What you and I have is way better technology than they did. We have access to incredible ways to arrange and manipulate data. So I want to ask you, what if we could use the big and bold energy that built MARC and build something even better? The last library history moment I want to touch on is RDA, which is history in that it's been talked about in some form or another since 1997, but of course it's history that's being written right now. The principles behind RDA are exciting, without a doubt. Moving beyond the limitations of the card catalog, being able to describe all types of resources without reference to physical books, making data elements discrete to have a flexible framework to interact with database structures today and in years to come. RDA has been a long time in coming, And I'll say from my perspective, at this moment, I think there's a real crisis of faith in RDA in the profession. There have been issues with dismissive leadership, issues with high cost, issues with incredibly challenging conceptual models. I am really rooting for RDA to succeed, and I hope that the RDA team can step up at this crucial time and demonstrate the value of RDA to library workers. I want to take just a moment to talk about leadership and what it means when there's a lack of leadership. I live about 40 miles from Darwin, Minnesota. That's about 65 kilometers. When I was originally planning what I would do during this keynote, I thought I might set up my camera on my car's dashboard and show the drive down. It's very pretty scenery, past farms and small towns, especially this time of year. But I pretty quickly remembered that the US is in an election year, and the drive down is littered with a not insignificant number of campaign signs for Trump, with flags and yard signs and a bus painted with "Make America Great Again, Again." And I've got to say, that's pretty shameful to me, and I didn't want to subject you all to that. This administration has been a nightmare, and I want to be clear that in some cases it's been lethal. The unrestrained promotion of white supremacy has led to increased vitriol and increased violence, most often against Black Americans, immigrants, and trans people. The unapologetic acceptance of the uncontrolled spread of the coronavirus in the US is just more evidence of a leadership that is morally bankrupt. Speaking broadly about any organization, when there's a failure in leadership, whether via a power vacuum, or through ineptitude, or through malevolence, it is incredibly painful. But what it does provide is clarity. What are our values? How are we living up to our values? And how are we failing up to live up to our values? What is most important to us? In cataloging, we've generally embraced the virtue of efficiency above all other considerations, following in the footsteps of Melville Dewey. Our systems are built around efficiency of action, favoring less information over more. Our collaboration is aimed primarily to not duplicate work. So I want to ask you, what have we given up by prioritizing efficiency? What if we chose different values to prioritize? Our cataloging standards are built with the goal of providing information to the library user. It is drilled into us. Think of the user's needs. When we create authority records, we do detective work to enable the user to find information, but we don't necessarily think about the author, the creator of the work, and their rights. So I want to ask you, what if we took into account the entire information environment of a work while we were cataloging it? Not just focused on the user, but taking into account the needs and rights of the people being described in the work, the people who created that work, the people who will be impacted by that work, and the words we choose to describe that work. Many people in librarianship still cling to the idea of neutrality, thinking that we can be neutral in our controlled vocabularies because we're librarians, and librarians are inherently good and value neutral. That's a viewpoint that holds us back in making the profession better. I'd like to wholeheartedly recommend all of the work of Fobazi Itar, and especially her concept of vocational awe, which describes a set of values that librarians have about ourselves and our work as inherently noble and good, which allows us to disregard the way that librarians have upheld oppression and allows us to ignore perspectives and critiques that challenge our view of ourselves. Within classification, I've been influenced by the work of Hope Olson in her book, The Power to Name, as well as Melissa Adler and Joe Tennis, whose article about acknowledging and naming the harm done in knowledge organization has resonated with me. I think that recognition is crucial. The words we use while working in metadata are incredibly powerful and can be used to oppress. The most recent notorious example, of course, is the Library of Congress subject heading Illegal Aliens. And it's frustrating that that dehumanizing language is still in libraries around the world because of congressional action. In the past year, I've chaired a working group through ALA, reporting on libraries who have changed that subject heading in their catalog. Our report was just published in June, and we're working on a website compiling information about how libraries can take action by changing this heading in their own catalogs. I also think there's some newer catalogers who can struggle with making decisions because they're very aware of the power of the words we use, and they don't want to cause harm. Continuing the work of Adler and Tennis, I've talked in the past about thinking of our work in classification and description as practicing harm reduction. I would echo what many have said, but April Hathcock said particularly well, "You are going to screw up." When it comes to trying to be respectful about racial identities, gender identities, disabled identities, there's no way that you'll ever know everything you need to know not to screw up. As April advised, you need to acknowledge that and move forward and have the ability to be gracious about accepting the harm caused and learning from your mistakes. We need to be intentional about making space in our practice to hear from people that we're describing. We need to be transparent about how we use people's personal information. And we need to build mechanisms that provide ways for hearing feedback about our descriptions. Really, we need to embrace the iterative nature of metadata. When I talk about the audacity of shared metadata, I am awed by the fact that librarianship was able to build this massive network of bibliographic records and trust in each other to improve and build off each other's work. So much of this comes down to having humility, knowing that we won't have all the answers, and being willing to listen. Being willing to step back and not be the expert, and hearing from others, especially those who have been intentionally shut out from our cultures, especially Black, Asian, and minority ethnic folks, especially disabled folks. We've all heard this many times, but there's value in repeating it over and over, because our whole lives we've learned and internalized narratives that value white supremacy and heteronormativity and patriarchy and cisgenderism and ableism and classism. So if we want to disrupt those hierarchical ways of making sense of our lives, we have to repeat alternate ways of thinking over and over. I've been impacted deeply by reading and watching science fiction to envision new worlds. And I'm indebted to my friend Sophia Leung and her scholarship for her ability to tie radical reimaginings of the world to our work in librarianship. Activist and organizer Mariame Kaba has a wonderful phrase, "Hope is a discipline." And the truth of that is breathtaking and worth sitting with for a moment. Over the next week, we'll be hearing from people doing great work in library metadata who are shaping the profession. As we listen and learn, I want to ask you, what are your values, both personally and professionally? I'd like to encourage you to think about your role in how libraries are creating and maintaining information, and consider what values you want to embody in your work. I have been lucky enough to hear Nicole Cook, Associate Professor at the University of South Carolina College of Information and Communications, speak multiple times, and she speaks about considering the legacy we want to leave after we're gone. I want to repeat what I've learned from her. What sort of profession do we want to leave the people who will be working after us? Changing the name of the group to the Metadata and Discovery Group is a fantastic opportunity to rethink our approach to our work. We can be just as bold as the people who have shaped librarianship in the past. We just have to think big. Just like, and I hope you know where I'm going with this, the twine ball. We have to tie our work together to create something that shakes us out of our complacency. We've got to make our work visible, promoting the value of our efforts, just like this great sign. And we have to support each other and build our community, just like the folks of Darwin, Minnesota. Thanks so much for your time this morning. I appreciate you going along this trip with me.
Okay, thank you, Violet. That was truly marvelous. I enjoyed every second of that. There's something very calming about watching everything waving gently in the wind, but taking in some really fantastic commentary that you provided there.
I figured it was better than watching just a boring set of slides again. So.
Yeah. No, it was lovely actually. Very restful, but put you just in the right frame of mind to be able to take in what you were listening to. So what we've got there then, I'm just checking to see if we've had any questions yet. I don't think we have. We had one asking about the people and readings that you were referencing, but you've already posted a link to that in chat for us, haven't you? So I've shared
Yeah,
that.
so the down at the bottom of that page that I shared the link to.
Yes.
There are references and some of the links to inspirations that I referenced in my presentation.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. What I wanted to get me back in the picture, that's better. It's very strange looking at a symbol. I noted that you asked quite a number of questions to us there actually, as a profession, and certainly some of them are very widely applicable to the information professional, full stop, but a lot of them obviously are much bigger issues for people that are working in technical practice. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask you, you talked about what we've given up by prioritizing efficiency. That's been a biggie for cataloging and metadata for a number of years now. The push, the headlong rush to just get that stuff off your desk. Don't worry too much about what you're putting in there or not putting in there, is usually the case. It's that constant balance that we're being asked to make, isn't it? What are your thoughts about that? From your experience, what are your thoughts about what have we given up by prioritizing efficiency?
Oh gosh, when I asked questions, I didn't think I would be put on to actually answer them. Oh no, no. So efficiency has been built into cataloging and classification for, I mean, since the days of the very early days of librarianship and professional librarianship in the late 19th century. So this isn't new. It's certainly not, you know, a new idea for catalogers to be pushed to be efficient and you know, and have that be the primary focus of what they're doing. It's just I want to be able to name that value, name that quality, and say that's a decision that the profession has made, and that we have a choice of whether we want to continue making that decision, continue pushing efficiency to say to greater and greater heights as we go forward. And I think there's not always a balance between efficiency and other values that we might choose, such as valuing the time of the user in providing more information. So essentially, the more information that we provide, the less information, the less work that the user has to put in. So it really is, it is a balance of whether we choose our time or their time in researching. So I just want to be able to call that out and say it's not necessarily how things have to be. If we want to continue doing that, that is fine, but we have to recognize what we're giving up, which is localization, which is being able to ensure that we have all of the information that we need to be respectful in our descriptions. We're giving up the ability to make sure that we're reflecting our local user communities when we have, say, a worldwide standard. So we just have to be cognizant of what we're giving up and whether we think that those values are worth fighting for, or if they're not necessarily things that we want to focus on. So it's not necessarily that I have the answers of where that balance lies. It's more a matter of making sure that we understand that the choices that we make are choices and not necessarily the way things have to be.
Yes, truly agree with you on that one. Yes. Oh, we've just had a question actually come in from Karen, who's manning our Twitter account this morning. She says, is Violet happy for the link to her transcription to be put on Twitter?
Oh yes, and I did tweet it and put it on the hashtag a little bit earlier. So
oh, lovely.
Please do.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about as well was the last question you posed, really, which is to do with what sort of profession do we want to leave those coming after us? I think this is a really intriguing question. And again, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to answer that question, or give us your ideas of how we would answer that question, what your personal feelings are on that.
Right. I mean, I guess, you can imagine my feelings that I want a profession that has a lot of respect for each other as colleagues, and respect for the people that are using our library catalogs, the people that are using our library materials, the people that are creating our library materials. I think that's very important, and we haven't paid much attention to that in library cataloging. Talking about the rights and needs of the user, sorry, of the library material creator, the author, the artist, the people that we're describing, and the people that we describe, you know, within the controlled vocabularies that we use. So, you know, respect is a big part of it, in being able to incorporate more varied viewpoints than we have, you know, in the past. You know, making sure that we are listening to the right voices and not just our own echo chamber. That, you know, those are super important values, I think, to make sure that we incorporate more in our day-to-day work. I guess as part of that, I would also say is a little bit more collaboration and encouragement of each other's projects. You know, making sure that we are recognizing where other people are putting in work and cheering each other on, and seeing where there are gaps in the profession, in our in other colleagues, their ability to do their own work and learn from each other. For example, I created a wiki, a website where people can collaborate together on making proposals to revise LCSH, the Library of Congress subject heading. So, you know, it's nothing official, but it's just a website where we can make visible the work that goes into revising these subject headings. So that, to me, that was kind of a reflection of what I'd like to see a little bit more of from the profession, of making our work more visible, and making sure that people who are new to the profession have a way to understand what's going on and how the decisions are made, and how they can be a part of making things better using their knowledge, to you know, to say, how can we change this for the better of our library catalogs. So yeah, that sort of collaboration is so important to me, that I love to see even more of that in other ways.
Lovely, thank you. We've got some questions that have come in now, so I'm going to fire these at you. But thank you for answering my questions, because those two particularly have been looming large for me recently. So thank you for that. So I've got a question from Amy here, who says, thank you for this, Violet. It is so refreshing to be pushed to think about our own power and positioning. So often we are trying to align ourselves and make our work almost invisible so as to survive. Maybe instead we can help lead our organisations rather than always to follow. So that's a comment really, rather than a question. But again, I think that chimes entirely with what you've said in the presentation and what you've just outlined now.
Absolutely spot on, and it's definitely, you know, it goes against a lot of our inner natures to do that, to really, you know, to yell from the top of the rooftops and say, hey, this is important, or hey, look at this thing I've done, or, you know, hey, you know, please don't fire me, I guess. So so, you know, those are all, you know, it takes practice. It takes You know, it takes having an intention of why you want to be clear about what you're doing and make this clearer, and really maybe in pushing yourself and each other to really reflect on how you can make sure that people understand what you're doing, not just doing it well, but doing it well and explaining why it's so important.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We've got another question here from Isidore. She wants to know, do you have a tried and tested, concise way of explaining the invisible labor behind library metadata to users who are unaware of it?
Oh, I don't. I should, shouldn't I? I think we should. We all should. We should all have an elevator speech ready, right? Um, oh, and I'm on the spot and I don't have one. You know, I I think really that's a great question, and don't be like me and have they call that the elevator speech. If you're stuck in an elevator with some muckety muck who's asking you about your job, you want to be able to to say, library metadata is crucial to being able to find the resources that we've put so much we've put so much money and labor and time into creating a collection of works, and how are we able to find those things without really high quality metadata that that is respectful of the people that we're describing. So yeah, so really and any sort of so that's kind of a super general way to say that, but really making sure that you can tie your specific work into the organization's goals and mission, so that it's clear both to you and to everybody else when you are in that position of saying, oh no, what exactly is it that I do, and why is it important. I think that that clarity will really help make our case for the kind of work that we want to be able to do.
Yes, I completely agree with you there. It's a really difficult thing to advocate because I think we take for granted a lot of the work that we do. I've got some more questions here. Let me see. So we've got, can you comment on how we might find an appropriate balance when the needs / desires of the creator are in conflict with the needs / desires of the user? For example, a transgender creator who wants all references to their dead name removed, but this may prevent users from finding resources created under their dead name.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And
That comes from Christine, by the way.
Thanks, Christine. I appreciate the question. And I would say, say first of all, to reflect that it is actually a balance. In the past, cataloging has very, very much only been user focused, really not necessarily taking into account the needs of creators or authors, even a little bit, to be honest. So I don't know about everybody else. It was drilled into me in my education and in my early training of focus on what the user will need. And you rarely even thought about what the author might say, even as you're doing detective work into their, say, birth date or middle name or all this information about them. So recognizing that it is a balance is a key part of this. And I would also say recognizing that if we have a creator who is in front of us, who's a real life person, we would want to make sure that we are respecting their needs over like a hypothetical user who might at some point need the information that that ties someone's dead name with their new name, their correct name. So recognizing that there's a real life human being in front of us who has probably very good reasons for wanting to disassociate that sort of name, versus the theoretical needs of someone potentially maybe needing to see who's tied there, who's tied to what name in the future. In my in my opinion, I would think that we would want to privilege the person who is right in front of us, and making sure that we're respecting their needs and their you know, their needs to make sure that they have safety and security, you know, over any sort of hypothetical user in the future. So I think, you know, we have to acknowledge the power that we don't have of being able to change everything in the world and all the physical resources. But as far as we can, I think we need to focus on doing what we can to ensure the safety and security of people who are right in front of us.
Yes, I completely agree with you on that. And actually, we've got a related question to that. So how can we reconcile providing our customers with more information, making it easier for them to retrieve items they want? For example, by using name authority control and gathering together all resources by one author, with the desires of the author to, for example, not have their date of birth broadly publicized.
Right. And again, yeah, talking about that balance of recognizing that there are conflicts. There are times when a user's needs would conflict with a creator's needs. And there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all answer for that. There are times when if you explain what's going on to a creator, to an author, you know, then they say, oh, okay, my name is Joe Smith, and there's 100 other Joe Smiths, and you know, it would be helpful for me to be able to provide that information. So the best that we can do is make clear what we're doing with that information, make it clear why we use it, why we need it, but we still have to leave the decision with the person whose information it is. And if that person does not want a birth year, you know, or a middle name, whatever their gender in an authority record, we need to respect that opinion, or respect that and reflect that in our metadata. You know, there's just sometimes where you just can't make every party happy, but you need to make the person whose information it is, you have to respect their opinion there.
Yes, that's great. Thank you very much. I've got a very interesting question here. This is from Henry. He says, given the issues around Dewey, do you think we should try and start from scratch and build more knowledge organization systems? And he's put in brackets, thinking big.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So I think about this all the time, right? You know, so my entire job is trying to make Dewey better. But at the same time, I recognize that Dewey doesn't work for all libraries. You know, there are many libraries that have user populations that would make Dewey not appropriate, or that have collection sizes that make Dewey not appropriate. And in that case, you know, I don't think it's worth trying to shoehorn Dewey into your collection. I'm all for people creating new and exciting, well, exciting to me, I guess, classification systems that work well for their users. We just have to recognize what we would give up in that situation. And what we would be giving up is interoperability. You know, if you have your own classification system, that's awesome. It's great. It's super cool. I want to go to your library and learn about it. But we have to recognize that there's a lot more maintenance and time and energy that goes into maintaining that classification. And if your library is willing to make that, you know, you know, maintain that sort of, put that work into maintaining a classification system that works better for your library's users, that's awesome, and I love it. A lot of libraries can't necessarily do that, and for those libraries, I'm going to try to make Dewey the best I can with their help. So that's, you know, maybe hopefully not a too facile answer, but I love seeing a multitude of different options, and also recognize what we give up when we don't go with just the one standard.
Great, thank you very much. I think we've just about hit the time now. We've run out of time for the question and answers. We did have one other question there, but if you're okay with it, could I send that on to you?
Yeah, I'm happy to email or yeah. answer it via chat or whatever.
Yeah, okay. I'll do that then, I think. But
Great.
thank you very much, Violet, both for the presentation and for the question and answer session. I think it's been marvellous, actually, and I'm so glad that you could join us. And
I'm so looking forward to the rest of the, I'm so looking forward to the rest of the week. This is going to be wonderful. And thanks in advance to everyone who's going to be participating and presenting. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Violet. Okay, so